by the king. Once upon a time, there lived a great king loved by his people. He had 3 sons who always made mistakes and were scolded by the king. However, the king loved them all just the same. One day, the king brought all 3 sons all together. The sons, who did not know why their father called, looked at each other and tilted their heads. The king slowly looked at his 3 sons sitting in front of him. Then he stroked his long beard with his hand and said,
Well, dear my sons, now I'm old and losing my power. The reason I called you today is to select the right person whom I would hand over the throne to. Sadly, the throne is only for one person. I can't hand it over to all 3 of you. Only one can be the king.
The 3 sons' eyes began to sparkle. Then the first son, who was greedy, asked the king in a powerful voice,
To whom do you want to hand over the throne?
I adore and love all of you just the same. So I wish I could divide the throne evenly. I have been agonizing over since there is only one throne.
Then the second son stood up and asked the king with eyes full of intensity, just like an eagle.
How about me to be king of kings, father?
The king, who was full of thought, could not answer the question easily. The 3 sons stared at the king and waited for his answer.
The king should be smart and wise enough to take responsibility of all the people in the country. So I am going to task you to see who would be eligible for the throne. Do you agree?
So what do we have to do, father?
The 3 sons came closer to the king. They kept blinking their eyes and could not stop waiting for his next word.
What's the greatest property you have? Show me. I will decide who deserves to be king after seeing the property.
The first son stood up and spoke with confidence, boasting a golden ring on his finger.
Father, this is the greatest and most precious property I have. The smart king should take responsibility of all the people in the country. To have the power, the king must have a lot of money. With this big, expensive ring, I can be a reliable king for the people.
The golden ring with blue emeralds on his finger was so glittering that the second and third sons stared at it with their eyes wide open. But the king's face darkened. He frowned with angerness. Then the second son stood up, pushing the first son away and pointing at his clothes, embroidered with gold. He said,
Father, I'm as rich as my older brother. People envy me for being rich when they see my fancy clothes. I'm sure that all the people would think I am the right person because I'm as rich as my older brother. I can be the smart and wise king.
The king shook his head from side to side and sighed loudly. His frowned face turned into red. The king bit his lips and said nothing for a while. The king seemed to have already given up and helplessly asked the third son,
My son, why are you so quiet? Don't you have anything to boast like your brothers?
Unlike the 2 confident brothers, the third son slowly stood up from his seat and spoke to his father in a calm manner. Father, I am sorry. I don't have a golden ring like my first brother, and I don't have nice clothes like my second brother.
So, are you saying that you have nothing to show me?
When the frustrated king shouted out loud, the third son answered in a trembling voice, Instead of a gold ring and expensive clothes, I have 2 diligent hands to work with, and a brave heart to handle any hard work. 2 diligent hands and a brave mind, that is all I have, father. Only then the king's face lightened up. His half-moon-shaped eyes were full of delight, and his face was full of gentle smiles. The king walked towards the third son and held his hand and said,
I will hand the throne over to you.
The first and second son looked at the king with annoying faces. They thought it was unfair, but they could not say anything Instead of those 2 sons who were busy showing off how rich they were, the king handed the throne over to the third son, who was truly eligible for being the king. The first and second son felt jealous, but they just had to accept the third one as the king.